Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have a lovely guest. She's originally from Ohio, but now she lives in Connecticut. So she's one of my peeps. I'm from the Midwest originally too. And her name is Olympia Della Flora, and she is the associate superintendent, which is a really big deal. It's like a mini super at a school district in Stamford, Connecticut. And the district is called Stamford School District. So did I get that right, Olympia?
You did. You did great, Mike.
Thanks. So, Olivia, thank you so much for being with us today. And I know you're doing this late on the East Coast. So, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, it's really my pleasure. When you asked me to join your podcast, I think it's too often that we don't share our stories with others. And I think it's super, super important. One of the things that I have learned with working with children for over 20 plus years is that a lot of them need to hear our stories. And now, with everything we've dealt with the pandemic, I think any way we can, give hope and ways of people to be resilient, I think that those are going to be helpful, not just for our students, but for everyone within our education community and even beyond.
I love it. I completely agree wholeheartedly. So, thank you for what you do and for doing it for over 25 years. That's amazing. And the first question is, what was your journey like to become an associate superintendent? Because that's a really big deal with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And I will tell you, I grew up, both of my parents were involved in public education. My mother was a school teacher. My father drove a school bus. And, I was very adamant from a young age that I was not going to be a teacher because I did not want to, follow the footsteps of my mom, which you often will hear from kids as they're growing up.
Sure.
And so I ended up, going into biology. I went to the Ohio State University and really had a love for science and math.
Hmm.
And so I said, oh, I'm going to, go into engineering. So I started in engineering and I thought, no, this is too difficult. I'm not into the whole coding thing and, staying up late because you have one comma wrong in your program. That
Yeah,
wasn't
that's a
me.
lot. That's a lot.
And then I went to, say, oh, well, maybe I can do pre-med and still keep with my math science. So I did that for a little bit. And then unfortunately, I had a really traumatic experience when I was in college. When I was 21, my
Hmm.
younger brother at the age of 17 died unexpectedly from meningitis.
So sorry.
This was early on, before they had the vaccine for bacterial meningitis. So it was just like a shock to my system, losing a younger sibling, seeing my family deal with just the sudden loss of losing, my brother. It was just a pivoting moment for me. And I realized at that point I could no longer fight this urge and desire that was deep down inside of me to have a work, to have a career, and to do something that was purposeful.
Hmm.
So it was at that point, I did finish my degree in biology, but quickly went into a master's program to get my elementary certification. So I got a K-8 master's program. And then really the rest is history from there because I went on to become a teacher. And obviously, I just fell in love with the work and, having purpose every single day really was a fulfilling thing for me. And with knowing that life was really, really short, I
Hmm.
knew that, this was a way for me to give back and still have a career. So I became a teacher. I became a teacher leader. I served in some coaching positions. And then I decided I wanted to go on to be a principal. And so, followed that path, became an assistant principal. And then I was a principal at an elementary school in Columbus, Ohio. And then I had the opportunity to take this position as an associate superintendent. And when you get to this level, you have to take the opportunities that are provided to you. So, there was no position for me to take in the district that I was in Ohio. So I started to look, and this is the district that opted to give me an opportunity. And I'm in my fourth year here in Stanford Public Schools. And again, now I have even greater reach because I'm actually working on policies and I actually support principals in schools. So some of that great work that I was able to experience being a teacher, being a principal, I'm now able to support principals in that role.
That's awesome. It's so cool. So you did follow in your mom's footsteps, which is
I
awesome.
did.
That's so cool. And my mom was a teacher as well. So and I have so much respect for teachers. They have the most important job in the world. That is just shaping the future of our kids. So hats off to your mom, hats off to you, and that you're expanding that role. Right now you're on the admin side and you're working with the entire district. And also I'm so sorry to hear about your brother. That's
Thank you.
yeah, I lost my sister about a year and a half ago, and she was my younger sister as well. And it's yeah, you lose a sibling, it's life changing,
Yeah.
and it's at any time in our life. But I'm sure your brother is looking down on you now from heaven, and he's proud of you,
Yes.
because how you said that it kind of fueled you in a sense to say, you know what, I'm not waiting to do something that's purposeful with my life. I remember you said something to that effect. And so it's I just think it's great what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think this is why also what you're doing is important, Mike, because you're sharing stories, and I get often because I often have to sometimes see high school kids now when they're sitting in at the expulsion table, and I'm really there to help, but people look at you and they judge you and say, oh, you're the superintendent or you're the
Mhm.
assistant superintendent, the associate superintendent, you must have had life just, cut out and easy for you to get here. And
Mm-mm.
so I think when you add that element of that, we're all going through life together and
Yeah.
really, I love your theme of born to shine because really we're all going to have setbacks through life.
Hmm.
But as long as we're living, we are able to work on overcoming those setbacks.
Yeah, so true. Totally agree. Totally agree. And if you're open to share this, did you have any struggles or challenges when you were growing up internally? Because for me, it was OCD and anxiety and depression. I didn't understand any of it. I was in third grade. I was a little itty bitty kid and I had really major internal struggles going on that we didn't really talk about. And still, unfortunately, to this day, um, it isn't talked about enough. So that was tough for me to get through. Is there anything that you were struggling with as a kiddo that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, sure. Like I was trying to think about what I might talk about, but I actually am biracial. My mother is white, my father is black. And so I really struggled with that as a child because I had to navigate different areas.
Mm,
So there were some times when I would be around all white people, there were other times I'd be around all black people, and I wasn't fully white and I wasn't fully black. So I really sometimes was trying to feel where do I fit in because there
mm,
weren't really a lot of biracial children or mixed race children when I was growing up. It was me, my brother, and my sister. So I had a lot of questions and just a lot of navigating and learning to do on my own in different situations, being of a race that really didn't fit into any category or box.
right.
As I got older, the world around me became more diverse, and I people ask all the time, well, what do you identify with? Like, well, I'm kind of forced to identify with something. But I remember just as a kid, it was, I was thinking, where do I fit? I don't see people like me. I see people somewhat like me. And again, I think these are just internal things that children go through, which is why I also feel it's important that, in our schools, we have conversations that are inclusive and, recognize diversity at many, many levels because it doesn't boil down. I mean, it boils down to not just your race or your gender. It can be where you come from, where you live, that have these internal struggles that kids come to school with. But what's important about school is that it needs to be a place that's safe and inclusive for all. So I think if we can create those environments, children like you who struggled with dealing with those things with OCD, and children like me who are dealing with just identity, feel that at school they have a safe place where they can be who they need to be and have individuals and adults that they feel safely talking to about those internal struggles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And having a safe space, like you're saying, that's loving, supportive, encouraging, inclusive. That's yeah. And I feel that that's the direction many school districts are going in, where it's not just reading, writing, and math. It's yes, reading, writing, and math plus SEL, social emotional learning. What's that, right? So they're incorporating that. That's great. And hey, what's going on? How you feeling today? How are you feeling? I noticed something's a little. You just don't seem like yourself, and it's good. Now they're building these relationships and conversations that normally didn't happen. So, um, all the wonderful people that I get to talk to, like you, are mentioning that they're starting to notice bringing in outside programs for SEL or bringing in outside programs for mental health to support the kiddos. And it's just so great to hear that because they didn't have that when I was a kid. There was just, you just had to kind of wing it and tough your way through it. And that was an awful way to grow up. So that's, it's just great to hear that you guys are creating that safe, nurturing space for your kiddos. That's awesome. And is there anything like any advice or final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners that maybe I didn't ask that you just would love to let them know?
Sure, absolutely. Obviously, I would want to, speak to people who are in schools and working with our students. I really think more importantly now than ever, as we're coming out of this pandemic, just really looking for opportunities for kids to connect with one another, and trying to find some meaningful and creative ways to do that because we have now adapted into a virtual world, and
Mhm.
a lot of our students and our children have probably been relying a little bit more on virtual space. But I really think it's important for us to find ways to have them be able to connect, and also exactly what we just talked about, Mike, like making sure that if you're a parent or if you're a caregiver or a teacher or a staff member in a building, that the children know that they have a safe place to come and speak with you, if they have issues. And I think our children need to also know and understand ways to have outlets, whether that be physical or social or emotional. Again, it all boils down to the safe space. But I think it's more important that we, as the adults, encourage our children, model for them, and teach them, it's okay if you're feeling this way, but these are the appropriate ways to deal with that kind of stress. Or if you're feeling anxiety, these are some appropriate ways that you can deal with anxiety. Or if you are having conflict or you don't feel like you're good enough, these are some people that you can talk to. I think kids need to have, they need to have it roadmapped for them a little bit. And then you will start to see that, just like you said, it's not just reading, writing, and math that we're teaching, but we're now teaching these soft skills, these life skills, right? That kids are going to take with them beyond the schoolhouse and into the communities in which we live. And we want to make sure that our children are supported as a whole child, because again, once they leave K-12, they'll be in the community, and we want, citizens who are empathetic and are able to manage their emotions living in our communities.
Yeah. Amen to that. I don't even know what to say. That was amazing. I love it. Having them as a whole child, right? So and once they leave K through 12, what do they have? What tools do they have? What resources? How are they going to apply that to their marriage? How are they going to apply that to their future job? How are they? And I don't know if it was Harvard Business Review, it was something, or the New York Times. I heard it. I listen to podcasts when I'm on my morning hike, right? Just to get out and breathe some fresh air and get away from my computer. And there was an article on soft skills becoming the new critical skills, that every employer is looking for now. So it's not just, all those are soft skills. Now it's, hey, do you have them? You don't forget it. I don't care if you have a 4.0. This person has the empathy, like you mentioned, the resiliency, the kindness, the self-love. Like they're determined, they work well with others. Those are superseding and trumping some of the other skills. So it's so wonderful to hear that that's not only on your radar, but that's at the top of the pile. So yeah, Olympia, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for being a part of this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Mike.